The lawyer's letter trembled in my hands as I read it for the third time. Carter wasn't bluffing. My husband of 3 years was actually filing for divorce and demanding a paternity test for our 2-week-old daughter, Mila. I never imagined that letting my ex-boyfriend Liam hold our baby first at the hospital would lead to this nuclear fallout. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, when I thought I was just being kind to an old friend who'd driven 2 hours to support me during labor. The contractions had been brutal for 14 hours. Carter paced the hospital room like a caged animal, checking his phone every few minutes and adjusting the thermostat. His nervous energy was driving me crazy, so when Liam texted that he was in the parking lot, I told him to come up. "Why is he here?" Carter asked when Liam walked through the door with a bouquet of pink roses and a teddy bear. "Because he cares about us," I snapped between contractions. "He drove all the way from Portland to be here. The least you can do is be grateful for the extra support." Liam squeezed my hand. "How are you holding up, Lyris?" "Better now that you're here," I said, shooting Carter a pointed look. My husband's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything else. When Mila finally arrived at 3:47 a.m., the nurses placed her on my chest for skin-to-skin contact. After a few minutes, they needed to clean her up and do the standard newborn tests. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. "Liam, do you want to hold her first?" I asked, gesturing to my ex-boyfriend who'd been my rock through the entire labor process. Carter's face went white. "Lyris, I'm her father. You'll get your turn," I interrupted. "Liam's been so supportive tonight. It's just for a minute." The look of hurt in Carter's eyes should have been my first clue that I'd crossed a line. But in that moment, exhausted and emotional, I genuinely believed I was doing something sweet. Liam had been my boyfriend for 2 years in college, and we'd maintained a close friendship even after we broke up. When Carter and I got together, I made it clear that Liam would always be part of my life. Liam cradled Mila with practiced ease. He had 3 nieces back in Oregon. "She's perfect, Lyris, absolutely perfect." I felt tears spring to my eyes. This was exactly the kind of emotional support I needed. Carter stood frozen by the window, his hands clenched at his sides. "Can I hold my daughter now?" Carter's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "Of course, honey," I said, but the damage was already done. The nurse glanced between us awkwardly as Liam transferred Mila to Carter's arms. For the next hour, Carter held our daughter in silence while Liam and I chatted about everything and nothing. When I started getting drowsy, I leaned against Liam's shoulder without really thinking about it. He was warm and familiar, and after 14 hours of labor, I just needed comfort. "I should probably head back to my hotel," Liam said around 6 a.m. "Let you guys get some rest." "Thank you so much for being here," I said, squeezing his hand. It meant the world to me. After Liam left, Carter was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I need some air," he said, placing Mila in her bassinet. "I'll be back in a bit." But he didn't come back in a bit. He didn't come back at all that night. I called his phone 6 times and sent a dozen texts. When he finally responded the next morning, it was just, "At Marcus's place, need time to think." My mother Sandra arrived at the hospital around noon, full of righteous indignation. "What do you mean Carter left?" she demanded, settling into the uncomfortable chair beside my bed. "You just gave birth to his child." "He's being ridiculous," I said, bouncing Mila gently. "All I did was let Liam hold her first. It's not like I committed some terrible crime." "Of course you didn't, sweetheart," Mom said, stroking my hair. "Carter's always been a little possessive. Remember how weird he got when you went to Liam's birthday party last year?" I did remember. Carter had asked me not to go, saying it made him uncomfortable. But Liam was one of my oldest friends, and I wasn't about to let my husband dictate my social life. I'd gone anyway, and Carter had barely spoken to me for 3 days afterward. Men can be so insecure, Mum continued. Your father was the same way when we were young. He got jealous of every male friend I had. Dad arrived that evening with flowers and a concerned expression. How are you feeling, kiddo? Physically, I'm fine, I said. But Carter's being impossible. He actually left the hospital because I let Liam hold Mila first. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Well, honey, I can kind of see why that might have upset him. Greg, Mum snapped, don't you dare take Carter's side on this. Our daughter just went through 14 hours of labor, and her husband abandoned her at the hospital. I'm not taking sides, Dad said quickly. I just think maybe we should all try to see things from Carter's perspective. There's nothing to see, I said firmly. I was grateful for Liam's support, so I let him hold the baby first. Carter's making it into something it's not. But even as I said the words, a tiny voice in the back of my mind wondered if maybe I had made a mistake. The look on Carter's face when I'd offered Mila to Liam first, I'd never seen him look so hurt. I pushed the thought away. Carter was overreacting, plain and simple. Once he calmed down and came to his senses, we could put this whole thing behind us. Carter's sister Heather called that evening while I was trying to breastfeed Mila. I heard what happened, she said without preamble. Heather had never been one for small talk. Did Carter send you to check up on me? I asked, adjusting Mila's position. No, actually. He doesn't know I'm calling. I just wanted to see how you're doing. I'm fine, tired, but fine. Your brother, on the other hand, is acting like a child. There was a long pause. Lyris, can I ask you something? Why did you let your ex-boyfriend hold Mila before Carter? Because Liam was there for me during labor. He was supportive and caring, while Carter was just pacing around making me more anxious. But Carter's her father. And he got to hold her too, I said, irritation creeping into my voice. It's not like I banned him from touching his own daughter. Another pause. I think you might be missing the point here. What point? That Carter's jealous and insecure? That you publicly prioritized another man over your husband at one of the most important moments of his life. I felt my face flush. That's not what happened. Isn't it, though? After Heather hung up, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. Was I really in the wrong here? It had seemed so natural in the moment. Liam had been nothing but supportive, while Carter had been stressed and anxious. Why shouldn't I have rewarded the person who'd actually helped me through labor? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how it must have looked to Carter. His wife, giving their newborn daughter to her ex-boyfriend to hold first, in front of the nurses no less. I shook my head. No, I wasn't going to let them make me feel guilty for showing gratitude to a friend. Carter was being unreasonable, and eventually he'd realize it. My phone buzzed with a text from Liam. How are you and the little one doing today? I smiled and typed back, tired but good. Thanks again for everything last night. It meant so much to have you there. Anytime. You know I care about you both. Give Mila a kiss from Uncle Liam. Uncle Liam. I like the sound of that. 3 days later, I was back home in our apartment with Mila, but Carter still hadn't returned. He'd been staying at his brother Marcus's place, claiming he needed space to process. I was getting tired of his dramatics. That's when I decided to take to Facebook. If Carter wanted to play games, I could play games too. Day 3 of single motherhood, I posted, along with a selfie of me holding Mila. Amazing how some people can just disappear when things get real. Guess I know who I can really count on now. New mom life. Gals stronger than ever. The responses came flooding in within minutes. OMG, what happened? Wrote my college friend Jessica. You're incredible, Lyris. Mila is so lucky to have such a strong mama, commented my coworker Rachel. Men are trash. You're better off without the dead weight, added my cousin Beth. Each supportive comment felt like validation. See? Other people understood what I was going through. Carter was the one being unreasonable. I posted another update that evening. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Some people can't handle strong women who have male friends. Their loss. Toxic masculinity. Yasser moving on. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Carter. What the hell are you doing? His voice was tight with controlled anger. I'm sharing my truth, I said calmly. Is there a problem with that? You're making this public, Lyris. You're dragging our private business onto social media for everyone to see. I'm not dragging anything. I'm just being honest about my situation. You left me alone with a newborn, Carter. How did you think I was going to feel about that? I didn't leave you. I'm taking some time to think about what happened at the hospital. You mean when I showed gratitude to someone who actually supported me during labor? You let your ex-boyfriend hold our daughter before me. The control finally cracked in his voice. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? It was 2 minutes, Carter. 2 minutes, and you're acting like I committed adultery. It's not about the time. It's about the choice you made. It's about where your priorities are. I laughed, but it came out harsher than I intended. My priorities are with my daughter and the people who actually care about us. If that threatens you, maybe you need to look at yourself instead of blaming me. I can't do this right now, Carter said. I need more time. Take all the time you need, I replied. Mila and I are doing just fine without you. After I hung up, I immediately posted another update. Just got a call from someone who thinks they can control what I post on my own Facebook page. Newsflash, I'm not your property, and I won't be silenced. My page. My life. Not your property. The likes and comments poured in again. My friend Sarah wrote, "You go, girl. Don't let anyone censor you." My former colleague Mike added, "Any man who tries to control your social media isn't worth your time." But not everyone was supportive. Carter's friend Tom commented, "Maybe there are two sides to every story." I deleted his comment immediately and blocked him. Heather tried calling me that night, but I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't in the mood for another lecture about Carter's feelings. The next morning, I woke up to find that Carter had posted something on his own Facebook page. It was the first thing he'd posted in months. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is walk away from something you thought was forever. But sometimes it's the only way to preserve your dignity and self-respect. Thank you to everyone who's reached out with support during this difficult time. I stared at the post in disbelief. Was he seriously trying to make himself look like the victim here? The comments on his post were much more subdued than mine, mostly just heart emojis and thinking of you messages. But I noticed that several of our mutual friends had liked it, including people who'd been commenting supportively on my posts. I screenshot Carter's post and shared it to my own page with the caption, "When you abandon your wife and newborn daughter, but still want to play the victim on social media. The audacity is truly something to behold." That post got more engagement than any of my previous ones. People were outraged on my behalf. My friend Lisa wrote, "What kind of man leaves his wife alone with a newborn?" My neighbor Janet added, "You deserve so much better than this, honey." But I also noticed something troubling. Several people who'd been liking and commenting on my posts had gone quiet. And when I looked more carefully at Carter's post, I saw that some people I considered close friends, like our couple friends Mike and Sarah, and even my work friend David, had liked it. I felt a surge of betrayal. How could they support Carter when he was the one who'd abandoned his family? I decided to call my friend Jessica, who'd been one of my most vocal supporters online. "Hey girl, how are you holding up?" she answered. "I've been better. Did you see Carter's pathetic attempt to play victim on Facebook?" There was a pause. "Yeah, I saw it. Can you believe the nerve? He leaves me alone with a newborn and then acts like he's the one who's been wronged." Another pause, longer this time. "Lyris, can I ask you something? What exactly happened at the hospital?" I felt my stomach clench. "What do you mean?" "I mean, why did Carter leave? You said he abandoned you, but his post makes it sound like there's more to the story." There's not more to the story, I said firmly. He got jealous because I let my friend Liam hold the baby first. That's literally it. Your friend Liam, isn't that your ex-boyfriend? Yes, but we're just friends now. He drove 2 hours to be there for me during labor, while Carter was just pacing around being useless. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Oh, what? Nothing, it's just, I can kind of see why Carter might have been upset about that. I felt like I'd been slapped. Are you serious right now? You're taking his side? I'm not taking anyone's side. I just think maybe this is more complicated than... I hung up on her. If Jessica wanted to join Carter's pity party, that was her choice. But I wasn't going to listen to it. Over the next few days, I noticed more and more people pulling back from me on social media. My posts weren't getting as many likes or comments. Some people who'd initially been supportive had stopped engaging entirely. Meanwhile, Carter remained radio silent except for that one post. He wasn't fighting back or defending himself publicly, which somehow made him look more sympathetic. I decided to escalate things. If people wanted the full story, I'd give it to them. Since some people seem confused about what really happened, I posted, let me be crystal clear. I spent 14 hours in labor while my husband paced around the room making me more anxious. My dear friend Liam drove 2 hours to support me and was nothing but helpful and caring. When our daughter was born, I let Liam hold her first as a thank you for his support. My husband got jealous and stormed out of the hospital, leaving me alone with a newborn. He's been staying at his brother's house for a week now, playing victim while I handle everything alone. That's the truth, and I'm tired of people acting like there are two sides to abandoning your family. Truth. Single mom, Arthur, done. But this post didn't get the response I was hoping for. Instead of outrage on my behalf, I got a lot of awkward silence. A few people liked it, but the comments were sparse and much less supportive than before. My cousin Beth wrote, "Sending love," which felt like a polite brush-off. My co-worker Rachel commented, "Hope everything works out," which was hardly the fierce support I'd been getting before. And then I saw something that made my blood boil. My friend Mike, who I'd known since college, had commented, "Maybe it's time to take this offline and work things out privately." I was furious. These people had been so quick to support me when they thought Carter was just being unreasonable. But now that they knew the details, suddenly they were all about privacy and working things out. I spent that evening going through my friends list and unfriending anyone who'd liked Carter's post or made unsupportive comments on mine. If they wanted to judge me, they could do it without access to my life. When I was done, my friends list was significantly smaller, but at least I knew who my real friends were. The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under my apartment door. My name was written on it in Carter's careful handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. "Lyris, I've been doing a lot of thinking this week. I realize now that we want very different things from this marriage. I can't compete with Liam for your attention and affection anymore, and I shouldn't have to. I'm staying at Marcus's place indefinitely. We need to talk about custody arrangements for Mila and how we want to handle the divorce proceedings. I hope we can do this amicably for her sake. Carter." I stared at the letter in shock. Divorce? He was actually talking about divorce. I immediately took a photo of the letter and posted it to Facebook with the caption, "When you try to have an adult conversation about boundaries, and this is the response you get, guess some people can't handle strong women who won't be controlled. Your loss." Single and proud, Ass dodged a bullet. But this time, barely anyone engaged with the post at all. A week after Carter's letter, I was staying at my parents' house with Mila. Mum had insisted I shouldn't be alone in the apartment, and honestly, I was grateful for the help. Newborns were exhausting, and doing it solo was harder than I'd expected. "He's being absolutely ridiculous," Mum said for the 100th time as she heated up a bottle for Mila. "Talking about divorce over something so trivial." "I know," I agreed. though Carter's words from the letter kept echoing in my head. I can't compete with Liam for your attention and affection anymore. Was that really what I'd been doing? Dad looked up from his newspaper. Maybe you should call him. Try to work this out. Why should I call him? I snapped. He's the one who left. He's the one talking about divorce. If he wants to fix this, he can make the first move. But Lyris, honey, you have a daughter together. Maybe it's worth swallowing your pride. Greg, Mom interrupted. Don't you dare suggest our daughter should grovel to that man. She did nothing wrong. I felt vindicated by Mom's support, but Dad's words nagged at me. Was I being too stubborn? Should I reach out to Carter? My phone buzzed with a text from Liam. How are you holding up? I saw on Facebook that things are getting rough. I smiled for the first time in days. At least someone cared about how I was doing. Not great, I texted back. Carter's talking about divorce now. Can you believe it? I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk about it? I could drive down this weekend. The offer was tempting. Liam had always been a good listener, and I desperately needed someone who understood what I was going through. That would be amazing. I could really use a friend right now. Of course, I'll drive down Saturday morning. When I told my parents that Liam was coming to visit, Dad looked uncomfortable. Are you sure that's a good idea, kiddo? Given everything that's happening with Carter? Liam is my friend, I said firmly. I'm not going to lose all my support system just because Carter's being unreasonable. But maybe, Dad started. Greg, leave her alone, Mum interrupted. Liam's been nothing but supportive, unlike some people. Saturday morning, Liam arrived with coffee and pastries from my favorite bakery in Portland. It felt so good to see a friendly face. You look tired, he said, giving me a long hug. I am tired. This whole situation is exhausting. We spent the morning talking while Mila napped. Liam listened without judgment as I vented about Carter's jealousy and how our mutual friends had turned on me. You deserve better than this, Liam said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. You're an amazing mother, and any man would be lucky to have you. His words were like balm to my wounded ego. This was what I needed. Someone who saw my worth instead of constantly criticizing my choices. Around noon, my phone rang. Carter. Don't answer it, Liam said. You don't need that negativity right now. But I was curious about what Carter wanted, so I picked up. Hi, I said coolly. Hi, I was wondering if I could come by and spend some time with Mila this afternoon. I haven't seen her in over a week. I looked at Liam, who was shaking his head. Actually, this isn't a great time, I said. I have company. There was a pause. What kind of company? Just a friend. Another pause, longer this time. Is it Liam? I bristled at his tone. What if it is? I'm allowed to have friends, Carter. Jesus Christ, Lyris. I'm trying to see my daughter, and you're entertaining your ex-boyfriend. He's not my ex-boyfriend, he's my friend. And maybe if you hadn't abandoned us, you'd be here instead of him. I didn't abandon anyone. I needed space to think after what happened at the hospital. What happened at the hospital was me showing gratitude to someone who actually supported me. If you can't handle that, it's your problem, not mine. Liam gestured for me to hang up, mouthing, You don't need this. Look, I have to go, I said to Carter. If you want to see Mila, you can make an appointment like everyone else. An appointment? She's my daughter. Then start acting like it, I said and hung up. Liam squeezed my shoulder. You did the right thing. He can't just waltz back in whenever he feels like it and expect you to drop everything. I felt empowered by Liam's support. He was right. Carter couldn't have it both ways. He couldn't leave us and then demand access on his terms. That evening, Carter sent me a series of increasingly frustrated texts. I just want to see my daughter. This is ridiculous, Lyris. You can't keep me from her. I'm her father. I showed the text to Liam, who shook his head in disgust. He's trying to manipulate you, Liam said, making you feel guilty for protecting your peace. You're right, I said, feeling validated. I'm not going to let him guilt me into anything. I texted Carter back. You made your choice when you left. Mila and I are doing fine without your drama. Liam stayed until Sunday evening, and I felt genuinely happy for the first time since the hospital incident. He helped with Mila, cooked dinner, and even did the dishes. This was what partnership looked like, not Carter's jealousy and controlling behavior. Thank you for everything, I said as Liam was getting ready to leave. I don't know what I would have done without you this weekend. You don't have to thank me, he said, pulling me into another long hug. I care about you and Mila. I'll always be here when you need me. After he left, I felt lonely again. The contrast between Liam's warmth and Carter's coldness was stark. Monday morning, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. When I opened it, I saw it was from a law firm. Dear Ms. Vane, we represent Carter Mitchell in the matter of his marriage to you and the custody of your minor child. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss temporary custody arrangements and visitation schedules. We would prefer to handle this matter amicably, but we are prepared to file formal motions if necessary. Sincerely, Patricia Hendricks, S.K. I stared at the email in shock. Carter had hired a lawyer. He was actually serious about this divorce. My hands were shaking as I called Liam. He hired a lawyer, I said as soon as he answered. Carter actually hired a lawyer. I'm so sorry, Liam said. Are you okay? I don't know. I can't believe he's taking it this far. Listen, you need to protect yourself. Do you have a lawyer? No, I didn't think it would actually come to this. You should call someone today. Don't let him get ahead of you legally. After I hung up with Liam, I called my friend Zoe, who was a family lawyer. We'd known each other since high school, and I trusted her to look out for my interests. Lyris, I heard about what's happening with Carter, Zoe said when I reached her. I'm sorry you're going through this. His lawyer wants to discuss custody arrangements, I said. Can you help me? Of course, but I need to understand the situation first. Why is Carter asking for a divorce? I explained everything, the hospital incident, Carter's jealousy, his abandonment of us, the social media drama. Zoe was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Lyris, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Is there anything going on between you and Liam? Anything that could be construed as inappropriate? No, I said immediately. We're just friends. He's been supportive during a difficult time. But you let him hold Mila before Carter at the hospital. Yes, but that was just... And he's been staying at your parents' house with you? He visited for one weekend to help me through a rough patch. And when Carter wanted to see Mila, you told him he couldn't because Liam was there. I felt defensive. I told him it wasn't a good time. Zoe sighed. Lyris, I'm going to be straight with you. From a legal standpoint, this doesn't look great. What do you mean? A judge is going to see a pattern of you prioritizing your ex-boyfriend over your husband. That's not going to play well in custody proceedings. But I haven't done anything wrong. Legally, no. But perception matters in family court. You need to be very careful about your interactions with Liam going forward. After I hung up with Zoe, I felt sick to my stomach. How had things gotten so complicated? All I'd done was accept support from a friend during a difficult time. Why was everyone acting like that was some kind of crime? My phone buzzed with another text from Carter. I know you got the email from my lawyer. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I just want what's best for Mila. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. If you wanted what was best for Mila, you never would have left in the first place. But even as I sent the text, Zoe's words echoed in my head. Maybe I needed to be more careful about how this looked to outsiders. Maybe I was in more trouble than I'd realized. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in a downtown cafe with Liam, trying to make sense of the legal documents Carter's lawyer had sent. The formal divorce petition had arrived 3 days ago, and the language was cold and clinical. Irreconcilable differences and breakdown of the marital relationship. "This is insane," I said, sliding the papers across the table to Liam. "He's actually going through with it." Liam scanned the documents, his jaw tightening. "He's asking for joint custody." "Over my dead body," I muttered. "He abandoned us. Why should he get equal time with Mila?" "Maybe you should fight for full custody," Liam suggested. "Document how he left you alone with a newborn." I'd been thinking the same thing. Surely a judge would see that Carter was the one who'd walked away from his responsibilities. My phone rang. Zoe. "I've reviewed the petition," she said without preamble. "We need to talk. Can you come to my office this afternoon?" "Actually, I'm having coffee with Liam right now. Can we talk over the phone?" There was a pause. "Lyris, you're with Liam again?" "He's helping me understand the legal documents. What's wrong with that?" "We'll discuss it when you get here, 2:00. After she hung up, Liam reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Don't let them intimidate you. You're a good mother and you deserve to have Mila with you." His touch was comforting, and I found myself not wanting to let go. Liam had been my constant support through this nightmare, while everyone else, including my own lawyer, seemed to be questioning my choices. "I don't know what I would have done without you," I said softly. "You'll never have to find out," he replied, his thumb stroking across my knuckles. For a moment, sitting there with our hands intertwined, I felt a flutter of something I hadn't experienced in years. Liam understood me in a way Carter never had. He supported my decisions instead of constantly questioning them. I quickly pulled my hand away, feeling guilty for the thought. I was still married, even if Carter was trying to change that. At Zoe's office that afternoon, she didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We have a problem," she said, spreading several printed pages across her desk. "Carter's lawyer sent these over this morning." I leaned forward to look. They were screenshots of my Facebook posts from the past few weeks, every single one where I'd complained about Carter or mentioned being a single mother. "So," I said, "I was venting about my situation. That's not illegal." "No, but it's not helpful either. Look at this one." Zoe pointed to a particularly angry post. "You called Carter a deadbeat dad who abandoned his family. That's not going to play well with the judge. But it's true. Is it, though? Because according to the timeline Carter's lawyer provided, he's been trying to see Mila regularly, and you've been refusing his requests." I felt my face flush. He can't just waltz back in whenever he feels like it. Actually, he can. He's her father, Lyris. Unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect, he has every right to see his daughter. "What about him leaving us at the hospital?" "He didn't leave you at the hospital. He left the hospital room after a disagreement and came back the next day. That's not abandonment." I stared at Zoe in disbelief. "Whose side are you on here?" "I'm on your side, which is why I'm telling you the truth. Your social media posts make you look vindictive and unstable. Your refusal to let Carter see Mila makes you look like you're using the baby as a weapon. And your continued relationship with Liam. What about my relationship with Liam?" Zoe pulled out another set of papers. "Carter's lawyer has a timeline of Liam's visits to your parents' house. Security footage from the parking lot shows his car there overnight multiple times." My stomach dropped. "He stayed in the guest room. Nothing happened." "I believe you, but how does it look? You're going through a divorce because your husband felt you were too close to your ex-boyfriend, and your response is to have that same ex-boyfriend stay overnight at your house." "My parents' house," I corrected weakly. "It doesn't matter whose house it was. What matters is perception." I felt like the walls were closing in. "So what are you saying? That I should just give Carter whatever he wants?" "I'm saying you need to start thinking strategically instead of emotionally. Stop posting about this on social media. Start allowing Carter regular visits with Mila, and you need to create some distance from Liam, at least until the divorce is finalized. I'm not cutting Liam out of my life. He's the only person who's been there for me through this whole mess." Zoe leaned back in her chair. "Then you need to decide what's more important, your relationship with Liam or custody of your daughter." The words hit me like a slap. "That's not fair." Fair doesn't matter in family court, results matter, and right now, Carter looks like the reasonable parent while you look like the one creating drama. I left Zoe's office feeling shaken and angry. How had I become the villain in this story? All I'd done was accept support from a friend while my husband threw a tantrum over nothing. That evening, I was back at my parents' house, staring at my phone. Carter had sent another text. "Can I please see Mila tomorrow? I haven't held her in 2 weeks." The message was polite, even pleading. It made me feel petty for refusing his previous requests. But before I could respond, Liam called. "How did it go with your lawyer?" he asked. I filled him in on everything Zoe had said, including her advice about creating distance between us. "That's ridiculous," Liam said firmly. "She's trying to isolate you from your support system. That's exactly what abusive men want, to cut you off from people who care about you." "You think Carter's abusive?" "Emotionally? Absolutely. He's trying to control who you can be friends with, and now he's using the legal system to manipulate you." Liam's words resonated with me. Wasn't that exactly what was happening? Carter couldn't handle me having male friends, so he was using the divorce and custody battle to force me to choose. "Don't let them bully you," Liam continued. "You have every right to have friends, and Mila needs to see her mother being supported by people who care about her." After we hung up, I felt more confident. Liam was right. I wasn't going to let Carter's jealousy dictate my friendships. I texted Carter back. "You can see Mila Sunday afternoon for 2 hours. My parents' house." His response came immediately. "Thank you. I'll be there at 2. But I wasn't done. I had one more message to send. "Also," I typed, "I want you to know that I'm not going to stop being friends with Liam just because you're uncomfortable with it. He's been more supportive in the past month than you were in the last year of our marriage." This time, Carter's response took longer. "I'm not asking you to stop being friends with anyone. I'm asking you to consider appropriate boundaries for a married woman." "Soon-to-be divorced woman," I corrected. "You made that choice, not me." "I made the choice to protect my self-respect. You made the choice to prioritize another man over your husband." I stared at his message, feeling a familiar surge of anger. Even now, he was trying to make this my fault. The only thing I prioritized was getting support from someone who actually cared about my well-being. If that threatens you, that's your problem to deal with. Carter didn't respond after that. Sunday afternoon, I watched from the kitchen window as Carter's car pulled into my parents' driveway. I hadn't seen him in person since the hospital, and I was surprised by how nervous I felt. He looked tired when he came to the door. Thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes, but he smiled when he saw Mila in my arms. "Hi, sweetheart," he said softly, reaching out to stroke her cheek. "Daddy missed you so much." Despite everything that had happened between us, I felt a pang seeing Carter with our daughter. He was gentle and loving with her, the way he'd always been. "She's gotten so big," he said, settling into the living room chair, with Mila cradled against his chest. "Babies do that," I replied, but without the venom I'd intended. We sat in awkward silence for a while, watching Mila sleep in Carter's arms. Finally, he spoke. "I got a job offer in Seattle," he said quietly. "It's a good opportunity. Better pay, more responsibility." My stomach clenched. "You're moving to Seattle?" "I'm considering it. There's nothing keeping me here anymore." "What about Mila?" "I'd want to take her with me, or at least have her for extended visits during school breaks." "Over my dead body," I said, the words coming out harsher than I'd intended. Carter looked up at me with sad eyes. "This doesn't have to be a war, Lyris. We could work something out that's good for everyone." "Good for everyone except me, you mean?" "Good for Mila. She deserves to have both her parents in her life." "Then maybe you shouldn't have filed for divorce." Carter was quiet for a long moment. "I filed for divorce because I couldn't compete with Liam anymore. And judging by your text this week, I was right not to try." "There's no competition, Carter. Liam is my friend." Friends don't usually hold hands in coffee shops. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? My friend Jake saw you and Liam at Cafe Luna on Wednesday. He said you were holding hands across the table. I felt caught, even though nothing inappropriate had happened. He was comforting me during a difficult conversation about the divorce papers. Right, Carter said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe me. The rest of the visit passed in tense silence. When Carter left, he kissed Mila's forehead and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I hope you figure out what you really want, Lyris, he said, before you lose everything that actually matters. After he was gone, I called Liam immediately. Carter knows we had coffee, I said as soon as he answered. So, you're allowed to have coffee with friends. Someone saw us holding hands. There was a pause. We weren't holding hands. I was comforting you. That's what I told him, but he didn't believe me. Because he doesn't want to believe you. He's looking for reasons to paint you as the bad guy. Liam's certainty was reassuring, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling out of control. That night, I lay awake thinking about Carter's words. I hope you figure out what you really want before you lose everything that actually matters. What did I want? I wanted to be supported and understood. I wanted to make my own choices about friendships without being judged. I wanted to be a good mother to Mila. But as I drifted off to sleep, a nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered, "What if you're losing sight of what's best for everyone else while fighting for what you want?" The paternity test appointment letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, and I stared at it in complete shock. Carter was actually demanding a paternity test for Mila. "This is insane," I said to my mother, who was reading over my shoulder. "He's her father. How can he even question that?" But even as I said the words, a cold dread was settling in my stomach, because there was something I hadn't told anyone. Not Carter, not my parents, not even Zoe. 3 months before Mila was born, Carter had been out of town for a work conference. It was the same weekend as Liam's birthday, and I'd driven up to Portland to celebrate with him and his friends. We'd had too much to drink at the bar, and when Liam offered to let me crash at his place instead of driving to a hotel, I shook my head, pushing the memory away. It had been a mistake, a drunken moment of weakness that meant nothing. I'd regretted it immediately and never told anyone. Carter and I had been going through a rough patch, barely speaking to each other, and Liam had been so understanding and supportive. But it was just one night. The timing didn't even match up with my conception dates. The doctor had been very clear about when Mila was conceived, and it was definitely during a week when Carter and I had been trying to work on our marriage. "You need to call Zoe immediately," Mum said, still staring at the letter. "This is harassment. Carter can't just demand a paternity test because he's angry about the divorce." I nodded, but my hands were shaking as I dialed Zoe's number. "He wants a paternity test," I said as soon as she answered. "I was expecting this," Zoe replied calmly. "Given the circumstances with Liam, it's not surprising that Carter would have doubts. But he doesn't have any real reason to doubt." "Lyris," Zoe interrupted, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there any possibility that Carter isn't Mila's father?" The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. I could lie. I could stick to my story and hope for the best. But if the test came back showing Carter wasn't the father, there might be a very small possibility, I said quietly. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "How small?" Zoe finally asked. "Very small. Like maybe 5% chance." "Lyris, you need to tell me exactly what happened." So I did. I told her about the weekend in Portland, about the fight Carter and I had been having, about the drinks and the moment of weakness with Liam. I told her how guilty I'd felt afterward, and how I'd convinced myself it couldn't have resulted in pregnancy because the timing was wrong. "When was this?" Zoe asked. I did the math in my head, and my heart sank. "About 9 months and 2 weeks ago." And when did the doctor say Mila was conceived? 9 months and 1 week ago, give or take a few days. Zoe's voice was calm but firm. You need to prepare for the possibility the test won't go your way. The timing. It's close enough that it could go either way. Be honest, Lyris. Do you think Liam could be Mila's father? I thought about Mila's dark hair and brown eyes. Carter's were blue. Liam's were brown. I don't know, I whispered. Then you need to tell him. I called Liam that afternoon. Can you come this weekend? It's important. He arrived Friday, worried. What's going on? Carter's demanding a paternity test. His face hardened. That bastard. Liam, I interrupted, do you remember your birthday weekend in Portland? He hesitated. We drank. You were upset about Carter. We made a mistake. We agreed not to talk about it. The timing, I said. It was when Mila was conceived. The realization hit him like a shock. You think I might be her father? I don't know. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want it to be true. He took my hand. If she's mine, I'll step up. I wanted to feel relieved. Instead, I felt dread. If Liam was the father, then Carter's suspicions were right all along. Wednesday came grey and cold. The lab visit was quick. A swab, a receipt, a wait. Carter was outside in his car. I hope I'm wrong, he said softly. I hope the test proves it. So do I whispered. Friday the call came. The alleged father is excluded, the technician said. Probability of paternity, 0%. 0. Carter wasn't Mila's father, which meant Liam was. A moment later, my phone buzzed. Carter. Got the results. We need to talk. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.